What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well. Doing a bit of a late live stream tonight. Nobody was doing anything, so I said, I figured I might as well just flick on a stream very quickly. I want to say hello to everybody in the chat, who it's not many, but I'm sure people will stream in as they come along. We got Working Edge Sharp, we got Peruka, we got Danger, Will Robinson joining the show. Thank you guys for being here. Yeah, I wanted to revisit very quickly a topic I discussed a couple months ago now at this point. It was my independent Holy Trinity, because somebody on the stream, his name is Todd, I'm sure you guys know who he is, left a comment on it, and it was kind of interesting. So I thought, you know what, let me revisit my selections, give you a little bit of my rationale, and see if my opinion has changed over the last, I guess, couple of months, because, these things are fluid at the end of the day. We got a shot in the dark joining us. We got Jordan Goldberg. It's all good. No worries about that. We got Jason Marn. But please, guys, be sure to upvote. Jason, I'm doing very well. I hope the same can be said for you. We got Jay Giddy. Welcome to the show. I'm going to drop the link if anybody wants to join, and drop the link to see if anybody wants to join the show. I'm sure people will be joining in slowly but surely. But so in terms of my selections, what were my selections? So I had 3 of them, I think, that were pretty reasonable. The first one being, of course, Greubel Forsey. I think Greubel Forsey, it stands to be said that they're probably, the best brand in terms of the watch finishing in the industry. I think they certainly deserve a spot on the list. And in terms of their innovations, I mean, be it the double tourbillons, the quadruple tourbillons, the insane complications that they're coming up with and that they're making is really incredible. And for those who don't know, obviously, Robert Greubel and Stephen Forsey started out Greubel Forsey, but they originally met at Renault and Poppy. So they got their start at Renault and Poppy, which is probably one of the most well-known movement makers. And they're phenomenal watchmakers in their own right. So definitely very nice. We got the wristwatch Jesus joining us. How are you, my man? I think you'll like this topic.
Marco.
I think you'll like this topic, the independent Holy Trinity.
Yeah, I love it.
I think this will be a good one. I just want to say hello to the guys in the chat. We got Tim Denman, welcome. We got Mossy. We got Quicker Than Drawn. We got Stuart Logan. Thank you guys for joining. I did a bit of an impromptu stream, but we'll get people joining in, I'm sure. No worries about that. But yeah, so I said, in terms of the Holy Trinity, my first pick was Greubel Forsey. I said, their finishing is second to none. Their watchmaking is second to none. There's really nothing you can critique from Greubel Forsey other than maybe their designs are not in your wheelhouse. But other than that, I think they're as good as a watch gets. And frankly speaking, they definitely deserve their place in the independent Holy Trinity.
Yes, yeah. I agree. Yeah,
that's my first pick. That's definitely my first pick. I just want to get through a couple of chats. We got Tim Denman saying it's been interesting watching everything unfold over the past few months. I'm happy watching all the watch content. It's enjoyable and informative. We got the Real Cars and Chrono. I'll drop the link if you want to join the stream. Talking independence today. I'm sure you're going to like that because of Todd Levin. So I don't know if you heard my early monologue. Just want to say hello to Tim. Thank you very much. Marty Evans. We got Bourbon Heart in the chat. JC. Joe saying, have you seen the latest TPG fiasco? I have not.
Oh, is it the selling a watch for $100 thing?
Wait, what's that?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Let us know, Joe. Please let us know, because I have no idea. I got to be honest with you. We got Watch Out joining us. So yeah, so Greubel is the first one. So that makes the cut for me. But yeah, Todd left an interesting comment. He said, hi, I was reviewing some of your older vids to catch myself up on subjects you've discussed earlier. And wow, I guess I'll take my Daniel Smith and Dufour and slink off. Should have seen this before I wandered into the more recent discussions. No, it's funny. So I said, what's it called? Let's revisit this. But yeah, Greubel is my first one, and that's definitely one to stay. We got Bourbon Heart saying running an illegal raffle. I mean, what are you going to do? Maybe he just wasn't informed. Maybe he just wasn't informed. We got the watch guy joining us. We got Jordan Goldberg, $68,000 watch for $100. And here he is. We got the real Cars and Corner. What's going on, man? Hey, guys. That's not the studio. Oh, no. He's frozen.
That's a nice pose.
Right. He'll be back, I'm sure. But so that was my first pick. My second pick, I picked FP Journe. And the reason I did was, for one, his technical prowess. For two, I think, and it's important to mention, his retail success. And, in my opinion, he's probably the watchmaker I can credit the most with really uplifting the independence that we see today. Here, I'll just remove him for now. The independence that we see today. So I think because of the growth that we've witnessed from the independent section, I think FP Journe he's got to be the second. You know what I mean? He's got to make that list.
Mm-hmm.
Watch guy saying, I missed your first. So the first was Greubel Forsey. It's got to be Greubel. Greubel's got to make that list. They're insane. Their watches are just crazy. The technical prowess that they put on display, and of course the finishing, which is the best in the industry. I think they're second to none. You got to go with Greubel Forsey, and then second is FP Journe. So any disagreements, wristwatch Jesus? Any disagreements on the first or second pick?
Let's get to your third pick, and then I would add some comments.
Okay. We got Mr. GMT joining us. Omar saying even $100 is too much for Hublot. We got Alex Watchholic saying he upvoted. Thank you very much. We got Basil's Bezels. FP would let you know if he wasn't in your top 3. Okay. Very nice. KR Joey says, have you guys seen the Citizen Suno JDM bullheads? What do you guys think? I haven't, but let me pull it up. Hold on 1 second.
Oh, well, normally I'm not a big fan of bullheads unless it has the Agengraph movement inside.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really don't like bullhead phonographs.
I will allow it for this exception. Oof. Oof.
Listen, man, God. I don't think you'd like what I have to say. I'm sorry to say, man.
What? Wait, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, the date is at like 1:30. You got a 4 o'clock crown plus a bullhead. Yeah, no, sorry, man. Sorry, my opinion is please avoid this. Russell says amazing pieces, but generally pretty raw. Yeah, that's usually what most people, the main critique of Greubel is that their pieces are definitely larger. But I don't think that takes away from their overall pieces. Now, the third that I picked. Now, again, I will say this because I did mention it in my comment reply to Todd was I would pick George Daniels, right, as my third because, he's got to make the list in my opinion. I mean, he's the only one to really innovate watches in like 200 years, like, real genuine. But the problem is he doesn't make watches anymore, and nobody makes watches in his name either. So I didn't count him as part of the list, right?
Okay.
If that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Otherwise, I would say Breguet,
Right, exactly. Otherwise, Abraham Louis Breguet has to make the list, right? Yeah. So the third pick was kind of a personal pick, right? I had to pick Kari Voutilainen. That's my third pick because
I get it.
To me, he exemplifies everything George Daniels kind of wanted in a watchmaker, right? An independent watchmaker, which is handmade crafts of the highest quality, with the utmost attention to detail. And his technical prowess himself is quite large. He does a lot of work with the Breguet natural escapement, which are the double impulsing escape wheels. Extremely finicky, very difficult to do unless you're a very good watchmaker because the controls are so tight on them that you have to be kind of perfect. I think Kari's dials, I mean, he's well known as the best dial maker in the world and probably arguably the best dial maker of all time. So I think for all those reasons, with those things in consideration, my third pick has to be Kari Voutilainen.
Yeah.
Listen, there's a lot of other great watchmakers that can take his place. I think
Of
Roger
course.
certainly could take
course.
that place. So could Philip Dufour. But my main criticism at the time was, and it still is, to be fair, to this day, is, they're mostly round case pocket watches. Although they are technically proficient, they haven't, they've had pretty long careers, long enough careers that, they haven't innovated to the level of an FP Journe has, or even Marco Lang from Lang & Hein has. So for that reason, I would pick Kari, but that's also, kind of a personal decision in my opinion. So yeah, that's my independent Holy Trinity. But yeah, I'd love to hear, Jesus, if you have any disagreements.
Yeah, okay. So let me preface by saying that I think you have three great choices, and you made some very good points towards them. And I agree in most of the case. Let me give you my opinion about the trinity of independent watchmaking. So I don't know how you value, how do you give a certain value compared to another? I don't know how to explain it. I tend to value like the respect that I have for the brand and the people's working behind it.
Yeah.
More than anything else. So let's say I would also have Greubel Forsey in my Trinity. And this is mainly for one project that they made a few years ago. It was called Naissance d'une montre. Did you know about this project? Where they have built a watch from scratch using only tools from the old days of watchmaking, entirely by hand.
One, right? That's
Yeah.
what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. So I know of it, but I didn't know the French name for it. Naissance d'une montre.
Naissance d'une montre it was called.
Yeah. This right here, right?
They did this everything by hand, no computer whatsoever. And it took them a very long time and a crazy amount of work and skill. And I mean, look at this. This is absolutely beautiful. And this is a very, very great feat of strength. And I mean, everything about Greubel Forsey is really good, but this to me was like the final piece that really put them up there,
Right.
The amount of work and commitment, because they didn't make any money over this, it was really to search for perfection. You remember when we were saying, those artists that are looking for perfection?
Right.
I think that was the idea behind this watch.
Right.
So this for me, yeah.
Not to interrupt you, we got Rez with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. He says, thank you. I'm assuming he means at the watch guy. Excellent pieces and more to discuss. Yeah, I think it's a great topic. Thank you very much for the $20 super chat. And yes, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, please.
Okay, so for number 2, I would pick Chronométrie Ferdinand Berthoud.
Ooh, that's a good pick. I almost picked them also, right? I mentioned them in that video.
Yeah, especially, that watch right there. I am in love with this watch. This is crazy amazing.
So this is an enamel dial, but it's a Bombay enamel dial, so it means it's like curved, right? So you can imagine how fucking impossible that is to me.
Yeah. And I heard you once saying that this dial is a bit boring. I think it is boring, beautiful.
To be fair.
Yeah, I think it is beautiful.
Time only, it's boring. I gotta be honest.
Can you find a photo of the movement? Because the movement won them the GPHG award. I think it was in
FP2.
Yeah, I think it was in 2019.
There we go.
Look at this.
Yeah.
This again is very close to perfection for me. It has like this fusée chain, but also
remontoir d'égalité.
Yeah, remontoir d'égalité. I mean, how can you do better than this?
Right.
It is both technically incredible, both aesthetically incredible. I mean, the chiseled base plate.
I think it's hammered,
Yeah.
right? They hand hammer it.
Yeah, don't you say chisel in English? Isn't like
Uh,
a
no, not exactly. It would be like a hammer, right? So they
yeah,
literally
it is hammered. Yeah,
yeah,
same as the AP frosting.
like the same as what's his name, Akrivia Reshep or Sheppy. He
Yes.
does those hand hammer dials,
Yeah.
except they do it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I think, and this is only one of their amazing pieces. I think they are one of the only brands who won 3 times at GPHG. Yeah, I mean, they are not mainstream. Very few people know about this brand, but um, you know, they are doing their thing in the corner over there, and once in a while they come with an amazing piece, and it's
They
always
only make what,
great.
50 watches a year, less than that, right?
Yeah,
Less than 50 maybe.
yeah. But this watch costs. I think it was. Is it
$150.
$150,000?
Yeah, I think it's 150.
150. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that people um, give twice as much to get the most basic RM? That
Right.
makes me cringe.
Well, they're different watches, to be fair. One's
Yeah,
more of a sports
yeah,
watch. This
of
is
course.
very much
But
a dress
this is
watch.
only my opinion. Of course, everything I'm saying is only my opinion.
Right.
And once again,
Just like us picking,
yeah,
let's just preface this
obviously.
also. Like even us picking independent watchmakers.
Yeah, of
It's very
course.
much you know what I mean? Like it's opinion based. It's not a matter of fact, right?
Yeah.
What do we know?
Yeah, of course. So this is also a brand that I respect very much. So for the third pick, I would be really torn between either Max Busser from MBNF or Kari Voutilainen. The thing is, Max Busser, I saw so many of his interviews, and he is so awesome, and he has such a good spirit when it comes to watchmaking, because he is not like a trained watchmaker, but he made his project come to life. He had so many hurdles on the way. He even was so close to bankruptcy once, and it was Spic Marine who actually saved him. And he comes, not only with watches, he has all these crazy mechanical wonders, like those huge table clocks, or even some things you're like, what the hell is this? I mean, it's pretty, but what it is. And it is something, that comes from his imagination. But yeah, I would also hesitate with Kari Voutilainen, because there is something that I absolutely love with Kari Voutilainen. Well, first of all, he is an amazing watchmaker. He makes beautiful dials. He makes beautiful movements. I mean, top-notch movement. I mean, he is well known for his craftsmanship. There's something I respect with him very much, is that first of all, he produces many parts for other brands, and this is actually something that he is very proud of. And I think it is also always very good to offer your services to others and not only keep your knowledge to yourself. And in the same idea, he loves collaborations. And there is something that we observed with Tim when we did the GPHG episode, is that there were many Kari Voutilainen collaborations. And this, once again, it's something that I really respect, that you allow to to give your hard work to other brands, not only for you. And it is only when you flip the watch upside down that it says in a tiny corner, Kari Voutilainen. I think this is very respectful. Well, no, not respectful. Well, you get what I mean. So yeah, either MBNF, but more for Max Busser and his crazy adventures, or Kari Voutilainen. That would be my 3 picks.
It's hard to disagree with listen, I wouldn't go with MBNF because problem is they don't, like, Kari will finish their watches, right? So to a certain extent, you know what I mean? Like, listen, their pieces are definitely innovative, right? There's nothing I can take away from them, but to a certain extent,
yeah. I mean, I get it, but yeah, as I told you, the way I value these brands is for the respect that I have for them. And I mean, yeah, otherwise I would pick, Dufour for his crazy finishing or something like this. Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
But listen, let's not take away anything from MBNF, right? Just to be clear, I think it's a great brand, no question about it,
yeah,
right?
No, of course.
We're talking Trinity, right? Like the
yeah.
So yeah. I just want to call this out right here. Stuart Logan says the lack of watch supply is frustrating as fike, but Rolex style and reliability is ridiculous too, which makes the frustration more frustrating. Yeah, that's fair. Very fair. Hold on one second, guys.
I did visit the Patek Philippe store recently. And, in Geneva, they have this amazing historical Patek Philippe store. And actually, they have all models, and you can see them all. And it was a Nautilus model. I don't really remember which one. I think it was the 5990, but one with diamonds. And the guy told me, this watch. This watch, Patek Philippe only produces 600 a year. It sounds a lot, but Patek Philippe only has about 300 retail stores in the world. So this means that each year, each retail store gets about 2 of them. And then he told me, do you know how many people called me about this piece today? He gets 50 calls a day about this piece. 50 calls a day, and this is only one store in Geneva. Imagine in the world all the people who are trying to get this watch, and only 2 per store per year gets allocated. I mean, that's crazy.
Just very quickly, I want to get this question from Frank Gerard saying, explain how Lang & Hein is a respectable brand. I mean, explain how they're not. It's probably the better question. But yeah, we got Daniel Katz. Oh, here we go. We got joining the show. Hold on, Tom. Explain how they're not.
Hello.
I got to mute you. You got the YouTube stream playing in the background. He'll come to you. He'll come. We got Daniel Katz with the $2.80 saying, I got a video interview PSM back in day. I don't know what that means. Can you explain what that means?
I'm not
sure.
Interview. Who is PSM?
Yeah, please let us know.
PSM has to be someone.
Yeah, please let us know in the chat.
Let me Google PSM.
Listen, I also just want to mention, like he said, like apparently I'm rebel streaming Archie. Like I don't mean to rebel stream. I gave him 3 hours. He usually finishes after 3 hours. Am I like not allowed to stream anymore either? Like to a certain extent, like guys, like I'm not rebel streaming him by any means at all. So listen, me and Archie are totally cool. I don't know what's going on, but I did give him 3 hours. That's what he usually does, 3 hours on the weekend. Todd, how are you, man?
Hey, it's funny. I mean, I'm not a part of this whole YouTube, I guess, stream thing that you guys do, and everything. And it just seems like a mad scramble for crumbs. I just see all these people throwing shade at one another, as I kind of pop around on this. Admittedly, I'm, not a big part of the dynamic, but it's just like half the time is talking about watches and half the time is shading other people who are talking about watches. It's really funny.
Yeah, but Todd, it's not about listen, me and Archie spoke about this. I told him I'm not planning on Rebel streaming you. Me and him are cool.
Rebel streaming is
it's like streaming at the same time as him, right? Like me and him, listen, me and him are cool, but I waited 3 hours for your stream.
But it's like, you're like I said, to me, it's just the whole thing's like a mad scramble for crumbs. I just think people should, it's okay if 9 people stream at once and people will go where they want to go. I mean, it just, the whole thing just, it's like shenanigans, kind of thing. I don't know why people get so wrapped up in it.
Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to the watch. We got Parsley with the $2 saying, Marco, keep doing your thing. Head up. So I did do this stream after all because of your, Pewter Speak Marine. Yeah, Speak Marine. That's Pewter Speak Marine.
Speak Marine.
They're an interesting brand, right? Because they make those, it's like officer style watches, right? I got to be honest, it's not my favorite
with
design.
the craziest slug in the industry.
Yeah, it's like, I got to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan.
I don't really dig them either.
Yeah, listen, the whole I guess inspiration behind these watches, right? So let me just make sure this is a good picture here. So the whole inspiration are officers' watches, right? Which officers' watches were previously what's it called? Pocket watches that were converted to wristwatches. So they would have soldered on lugs, that onion style crown, right? Which is, reminiscent of pocket watches. And typically they were, Patek did a lot of those during World War II, for example, or during World War I rather. So yeah, the idea is that that's the concept, but I just dislike the design of these watches. Yeah, they're great. They're great. They're amazingly made watches, but yeah, not my thing, man. Sorry. But yeah, so Todd, welcome to the stream, and you did inspire me to do the stream today to revisit my 3 picks. Listen, I thought about it again.
I didn't mean to, I was just sort of joshing you, but you did.
No. I know, but it is a good question.
Look, I'm nothing here.
Oh, Todd, you were doing so well, Todd. I'm sorry. You're gonna have to go. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm never wearing my watches again. In fact, I threw them all in the garbage after I saw your comment, and that was the end of it. And
Yeah, no. So the idea is,
I'm gonna put it on now. So I'm just kidding.
Right. So first thing, right? Let me qualify first and foremost. I would include George Daniels in my list, right? But the point is he's not making watches anymore. Obviously, the late great George Daniels.
Oh, I heard you discussing earlier. I'm sorry, I was on the phone with my daughter. I couldn't jump on. I have a standing call with her, either Friday or Saturday evenings, and so we were catching up. So I kind of heard in the background. So no need to have to go through it again. So I totally understand your POV, and I think it's just a personal, strictly personal. I don't think there's a correct answer here, kind of thing. So, yeah, I was just, dogging you a little bit. If I was,
that's fine. But I'd love to get your feedback, your take on it, right? So you did hear what we had to say in the beginning.
I think that the key thing is you really have to decide, first of all, how you're going to decide to define what an independent watchmaker is.
That's fair.
Okay. Because, for instance, people talk about Greubel Forsey, and wonderful watchmaker, wonderful team. Well, they have 130 employees. So is a company with 130 employees independent watchmaker at that point?
Well, they're still only making 100 and something watches a year, right? Just because.
Right, but they're hardly involved with the physical making of the watches themselves. They're directing, but they're not. So then is an independent watchmaker a person who is physically, if not completely, making the watch themselves, working with a very small team, and basically has their hands on every single watch to a large degree, with maybe a team, supporting them in some of this, because if there was no team and it was a single person, they could make like 2 things a year, or 1 thing a year, or 3 things a year. So it'd be, at that point, I mean, is that true independent watchmaking? I'm not saying there's a right answer. I'm just suggesting that I think, and everybody will have their own definition of the terms. I'm not suggesting that we would have an agreement here on like, this defines what an independent watchmaker is. I think there's as many opinions about that as there are people, and that's fine. We don't need an agreement. But the first thing you need to do is define to yourself what you consider true independence to be in horology. And then based on that, I think you can name your 3, so to speak, or at least the ones, whether it's 2 or 4, or whatever, that you think are the keystones. And does living or not living count? Yeah, I mean, there's all these variables, and you have to tweak each one of those knobs to a reading that you feel is most accurate in terms of what independence in horology is. So by your, knob tweaking at the end, I think you got to ones that were very sensible. I don't concur with that, but perfectly fine. I think that's what makes the whole back and forth of what you do and what other people like you do on these live streams, like the interesting part of it is it's in the back and forth and in the sharing of the information.
I just want to pull this up. Basil says, imagine the name of the brand standing over you while making their watch. Guys, that definitely does not happen, guys, because that would probably make people mess up, make people very nervous, and then they would mess it up. And these watches already take like hundreds of hours to make. So I don't think they want to make it 200 hours to make, or 300, or double the process with which they're made. Mick11 brings up a good point, saying the concern I have with micro independence is service if and when the individual at the top is gone.
Yeah, we discussed that before, and yeah. If the independent watchmaker, even if it's a micro, is a watchmaker of high enough caliber, they understand that what they're doing, they understand it inherently, that what they're doing now will have to be serviced in the future after they're gone. They understand that. And they complete the architecture of their watches in such a way that they know that a reliably professional horologist will be able to deal with their watches in the future. I mean, that's a given in any of these cases. If somebody is using a technology and an architecture to the design of their watches that is so unique and or complex or requires specific tools that can only be applied to that watch, they know that they're dealing with planned obsolescence, and they just don't care. That's another thing. But any good maker that you would name here, any of the ones that you'd name, any of the one that Watch Jesus would name, any of the ones that I would name, all of these watchmakers know, they're very cognizant of this fact, and their bills are such that these watches can easily be disassembled, cleaned, repaired, and reassembled in the future. So I don't see that really as it's a common argument put forth, but it's kind of a fallacy.
Right. Unless you're buying like a Vianney Halter deep space resonance or something like that, maybe that'll be a bit harder to find. Even then, yeah, I'm only kidding. I'm being facetious.
And the deep space resonance, in terms of its build, I don't think is really as complex, to be quite honest, as the help me. The first watch that he got, really, which I think is beautiful, and I'm having a senior moment.
He's made some.
The one with 4 apertures.
Not the perpetual. The perpetual.
No. It's got 4 apertures on it.
Hold on, let me Google this because I'm not sure.
It's Vianney's most famous watch. I'm just come on, somebody out there.
I'm sure somebody will name it in the chat.
Yeah, somebody just name it. I'm just like I'm so embarrassed, like I can't remember the name of it. It's based on like Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea kind of look.
Oh, the Antica?
The Antica, thank you. The Antica or Antica, yeah, one or the other. Like that watch is actually a much more complex build because to get that to operate the way it did, it's really almost proprietary. The Deep Space Tourbillon, not so much. Interestingly, though it's a more complex watch, it's got more moving parts. This one is a more complicated thing to service. And I think last time I heard service on this was $6,500. Just a cleaning.
That's pretty cheap.
So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, listen, I'm with you. I don't think
one of the
it's
great designs. I don't know if Halters would be in my top 3, but I think that watch that you just showed, the Antiqua, is one of the true inflection points, one of the great independent watch designs ever. I mean, it's in every book, and it should be. And I think when I think of independent watchmaking, and I think of not the makers, but I think of like the watches, specific models, I really think of the Antiqua as being like one of the, because what you were talking about, like a watch that looks different. Remember you were having that, like that was really crucial for you. I think the Antiqua fills that bill 100% in every possible way.
Right.
So.
Captain brings up a good point. He says, who makes the definition? Is it like AMG, no one man, one watch? Yeah, I think it's very personal. I don't think anybody you ask 20 people, I'm pretty sure they'll have a different opinion of what an independent watchmaker is.
Yeah, as we discussed.
Ooh, James the Advisor says, no love for independent RGM. RGM is decent. Listen, they're not on the level of.
What's RGM?
It's the U.S.-based.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, I think, or Philadelphia or something.
I'd be curious to know from James why. Oh, he's saying they are great watches. Why aren't we discussing them? Now I thought he meant he didn't have anything to do with them. He thought, no, I think that they're great, and I think of them as as we've discussed earlier, James. I think of them in the same breath as I think of in Los Angeles, J.N. Shapiro.
Right.
The same kind of. The same kind of dynamic.
Yeah, I think actually.
And they're at the same price point, sort of, kind of. I think you and I had spoke about that, Marco, in one of the earlier chats. They're more or less.
Right. SBSB says they're really doubtful for Chaikin.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Oh, Chaikin, you can still get a service. Most of them are some are ETA-based movements even.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes.
So they're very highly modified, right? But still ETA-based. So, Stuart Logan says, how many of these top independents will survive when the namesake moves on? Top talent likes to start their own brands rather than continue another. That's interesting, right? So one that I can probably point to is Laurent Ferrier. So his son, right? I'm pretty sure he worked for a number of brands. I forget his name, but he worked for a number of brands in Geneva, and then he went on to work with his father when he started Laurent Ferrier, obviously. So there's the potential of that happening. But I don't think so. I think they would probably keep on the heritage of their parents. Like Daniela Dufour just made her first Simplicity, right? Right. I don't think she wants to necessarily go out and make her own watch, right? I think she wants to continue potentially the legacy of her father.
But she may push in the way like Roger was sort of a son to George, and he did what George, he started there, and then he's pushed forward. I hope that we see that in Danielle. If she just slavishly recreates a whole bunch of simplicities and a couple of dualities in her lifetime, I think that would be really a sad situation. I hope that she, not bending to novelty, but trying again this, to really develop her father's ideas, finds fresh ways to articulate her own personal sensibility about her father's, using father's design, using that as a foundation and going forward from that. And I think that that's not that uncommon. You have to remember when we're talking about independent watchmakers, I mean, it starts with Daniels, and, Daniels really didn't build his first independent, wristwatch. You're talking like basically the 1980s. I mean, this isn't that, we're not talking something that's been around 100 years. We're talking something that's been around like one generation. That's it. Independent watchmaking is one generation old, basically. Not very old.
Right.
So.
Right, but the hope is that their legacy will continue to carry on. Like, for example, maybe the Dufour brand will just be renamed, or the Philippe Dufour brand will just be renamed to Dufour, right? Like Abraham Louis Breguet, I'm sure he signed his watches to a certain extent. He signed them as Breguet, right? But for example, like the name evolves, right? The name.
I think it would be great to see Daniela Dufour on her own watches.
Right. But maybe she just signs them Dufour, right? You know what I mean?
One or the other. But I'd like to see, she's done her own work. she deserves to have her name on a watch in the same way that I think her father does, kind of thing. And
but you want that legacy, right? Isn't there an argument that you want a brand to keep on building?
I think if she's only going to reproduce simplicity, she should keep the Philippe Dufour name on it. In the same way that when Roger Smith completed the run of anniversaries by George, he kept George's name on it, But I'm hoping that, again, Daniela will do what Roger did and sort of step outside of that constraint at a certain point. She's very young, but I'm hoping that would be ideal. She's had the best training ground possible, and I hope that it doesn't become a straitjacket.
Yeah. We got Bezos and Bezos with the $2 saying, leaving a legacy, wonderful thing. Absolutely, no question. Thank you very much.
What every watchmaker dreams of. That's why George specifically went out on his own. He was, repairing watches one day, and his father said, well, why don't you make your own? And George said, well, I can't do that. That's impossible. He was, about 50 years old. And then he sat down one day and he thought to himself, I've worked on all these watches, historical watches, and, repair them, and newer watches. And when I die, there'll never be a Daniel's name on a watch. It'll always be somebody else's name. I've done the book on Breguet. I've done all of this, and nobody will ever know who I am. And he thought, it's impossible. I can't build my own watch. And then he sat down and thought about it. And he was like, I think I can build my own watch, because he wanted his name, and I think that's why, in the same way when Voutilainen was creating, watches for other companies, and he showed in 2004, his work to Dufour immediately said to him, you need to go out on your own in 2004. He said, this is really nice, but you should really have watches with your own name on them.
Was he working for Parmigiani at that time?
I'm not sure.
Clocks, right?
He was working, he went through, like many watchmakers do, a number of different, to gain whatever he could from each situation. But it was in 2004 when he showed one of the watches he made under another name to Dufour, and Philippe said to him, look, this is beautiful, but you really need to go out on your own, and here's how to do it.
Yeah.
So,
and at that point, Dufour was already making watches by himself for a while, right?
Oh, yeah, time. Yeah, absolutely.
Vince Fine Arts with the $5. Thank you very much for the super chat, saying, love the stream, guys. Todd, I have a cost drawing you might be interested in.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But yeah, it's interesting. So I guess, Todd, my next question is, what would be your independent Holy Trinity, and why?
Well, look, you've got
how would you qualify?
British and Swiss largely, right? So the British side is going to be George and Roger. That's that. And on the Swiss side, you're going to have, for me, Philippe and all the people that he's affected, but it starts with him. And I know both of these work because they're round watches and they're not fancy and all that. But both of you were discussing this earlier. You brought up Greubel Forsey. You brought up, who else did you discuss? Voutilainen.
Ferdinand Berthoud.
You brought up
Ferdinand Berthoud.
Before Ferdinand.
FP Journe.
Yeah, Journe, certainly. And then there was another, not Greubel Forsey, but who's the other team? There was another team that you were talking about.
MBNF.
MBNF, yeah, Max, yeah. All of them have been on the record, literally on the record quoted as talking about either George or Philippe Dufour or both as their antecedents, that they wouldn't exist without either George. And in the case of Journe specifically, he even made a watch on the back that said, to my mentor, George Daniels, before George died. That was recently resold at auction just about 3 months ago. That sold for $450,000. It was otherwise
kind of cheap, to be honest.
I thought so too. And had I known about it, I missed it.
All things considered, right? Considering the watch, I know $450,000, not cheap. Yes.
But to have a Journe that's on the back, engraved by FP himself in his hand, that says, to George Daniels, my mentor, from FP Journe. Right. That's a kind of a game changer for me. But anyways, all these people that you've discussed, who are all amazing, and many others who are all amazing independent watchmakers, have been on the record that they owe literally their livelihood and their entire ability to do what they do to either Philippe, who might have affected some of them, or George, or both. So that's why, for me, if I'm looking at like the apogee, like the top of the mountain in terms of the Holy Trinity, you've got to have George, even though it's like a round watch. I got it, and Roger. You've got to have Philippe, and now I guess Daniela. The question is, who's the third watchmaker? And I'm not looking at independent watches like I like the Antiqua here or I like the Chronometric Contemporain over there. I'm talking about like who's the watchmaker who would be the third part of the Trinity. That's very hard. I haven't decided that at that point. I really haven't come to grips with that, to be honest. So I only have two right now. When you talk to me about the top of the mountain, the real top of the mountain, Trinity, I know two of them, but I'm not sure who the third person is who's affected horological history the way that George and Philippe have. So that's, and one represents the entire English tradition, one represents the entire Swiss tradition. So I'm like trying to think, what's the other tradition that one might represent? I just haven't figured it out.
I just want to pull this up very quickly because Rez sent me an email about these VC chronographs. It's the Gen 3 Overseas Chrono. The one thing that really irks me about this watch, I absolutely love it, is that bloody day window. Like, just get rid of it. You know what I mean?
For some reason, I like blue with silver.
Yeah, but you don't need that date window. What's the date window? Just get rid of it completely. You don't need it there. You know what? Funny enough, I was literally talking to what's his name, the captain, Steven, and I was telling him, man, I think the biggest sleeper are the Gen 2 chronographs. They're still relatively, affordable, relatively, obviously, quote unquote. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that we bring this up because I was literally discussing this with him.
Gen 2 have the big date at 12, which is much more appealing.
Which I prefer, but I like the dial of this much better. This is much more special. Yeah. Jordan says these streams with Todd are such a treat. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. We got Loose 2 saying Todd Levin just tuned in. Thoughts on Charles Frodsham, English watchmaker?
I like Frodsham's work. I tried on the watches when they were announced. I thought that they were super handsome. I love, again, they pull a lot on the, on the dual drive dynamic that.
It's the natural escapement, right?
Yeah.
Oh, let me pull it up
it's
here.
very much based on sort of, Daniel's kind of escapement kind of thing, not the coaxial, but the design of the dual drive. And I think they're, very, very, very handsome watches. They seemed kind of pricey for what they were. I don't remember now, but they seemed rather, expensive.
They're not cheap. But
they were done in kind of very limited editions too, perhaps.
I think they're only making maybe 10 watches a year.
Yeah, it was really small. So maybe that's
like 15 at most, probably.
Maybe that's why the price needed to be where it was. Yeah.
Yeah. But they got the English kind of style, like very thick,
Yeah. See that symmetrical dual. It's really beautiful. And that massive tourbillon, really.
Even look at this. I don't think it's a tourbillon, to be fair.
No, it's not a tourbillon.
Oh, it's not.
It's not.
It's a
natural escapement right here, right? It's got these double impulse.
Yes.
Yes. Huge escapement wheels. Sorry.
Which they mentioned, I think it took them like almost 20 years to develop this movement.
Yeah.
Because the what's it called? The sensitivity of the movement or of that escapement rather is like the controls are so tight, right? That it's very easy to fudge it up. So yeah.
Yeah, and you can see the beautiful craftsmanship with those rounded triple bridge there. That is absolutely beautiful.
And it's really that it's a real apogee of the gilded finishing. Very English kind of in its finishing. Nothing too fussy, nothing overdone, not a bunch of anglage, none of that sort of nonsense. This is really kind of very pure English finishing at its highest.
And even, for example, like you can just tell the names are engraved by hand.
Yep.
Just based on the lettering. Like this is really nice.
It's a very.
This is the only, the double impulse chronometer. That's it. Yeah. But this is the only watch they make, to be fair, right? So.
Yeah, I think you have some choices about the numeral style and and the hand style, but fundamentally that's.
Actually, I think it's only you can change if you want the royal warrants, right? So they'll make.
It's great looking. I love that. Yeah.
Right here, you can get the two royal warrants on.
I love the one with the royal warrants. I don't know why.
Really? I think it looks tacky. It looks so stupid. It looks like a gimmick. I got to be honest with you.
Oh, I think it's kind of fun. Yeah, I don't know. It's like having a con jar or something, kind of thing.
Maybe, yeah, I guess I see that, but it's like I don't know, not my favorite. I can't find a picture of it, but yeah, it has these two like emblazoned royal warrants on the dial itself.
Yeah, but see, you can do the Roman numerals. You can do the Arabic numerals.
Oh yes, you can do that. Yeah. Okay. So
I think the one with the Roman looks absolutely beautiful. I would go with Roman.
And it's very similar to what's his name, to Roger's kind of blue. They're almost like a purplish hue.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's character. Is that characteristic of the British, or it's just that's the way that they do it?
No, I think all really nice. Well, you have a lot of variability when you blue something based on the time frame. And a couple seconds can make a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Some watchmakers prefer a purely like deep blue, almost navy, midnight blue color. That's very solid. And other people love it when it shape shifts from purple to like indigo and back again, and under the light. So I think that's personal to different watchmakers, what kind of blue they prefer for their watches.
I just want to pull up this super chat. We got Rez with the $10 saying, sent you an email, thought you would like, given you have been advocating for VC lately. Yeah, VC is probably my favorite brand. I mean, thank you for the super chat. You didn't have to. I would have pulled it up anyways. But I mean, what can I say that I haven't already said, right? I was literally discussing the Gen 2 chronograph with the captain prior to the stream and said, man, you should get that one. But listen, I like this one also. I like this blue dial better, right? It's made in the same factory as the Journe chronometer blue, in that same kind of style and aesthetic as the chronometer blue as well. I think it looks absolutely gorgeous. But the one thing that irks me, and I can't stop looking at, is this goddamn date window, Rez. It irks me. Like, it pains me to see it, But yeah.
Is it because it's like a non-symmetrical thing, or you just like it at all?
Yeah, it's like 430, and it's also like white on the blue. It's too big a contrast, like a visual contrast.
Like jumps into your face,
Right. It just like it's just there. You know what I mean? It's just there. Yeah. But Rez, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Really, if you have any questions, please let me know down in the chat. Be happy to answer. So yeah. I guess, Todd, let's get back to the question, right? So you mentioned George Daniels.
Daniel Smith. Call that one line.
Right. Daniel Smith. Okay, gotcha. Well, if we're doing Daniel Smith, then I would put Daniel Smith in the
Well, it's because Roger did build the anniversary and the millennium fundamentally on, with George there. So I kind of feel like you need, to kind of, they're kind of locked together on that account, I suppose, in my mind at least. So,
okay, and then Dufour's the second, and who's the third?
I don't know. As I said, I really had a hard time thinking of who would who's affected horological history in the depth and breadth that those two people have, not just in terms of the watches they've made, but also the effect they've had on young independents after them. It was their next generation. And as I said, when I don't know of anybody else who's had an effect on Journe or MBNF or Greubel Forsey or, name whoever it is that you want to name, in the same way that either George and or Philippe did. I just think that, really it's possible that you're just dealing with two godfathers in a certain way. Yeah. And I'm happy to wait and sort of sit back rather than jumping in the fray and kind of seeing how things settle out over 5, 10, 15 more years. And then maybe somebody will become apparent to me as like sort of the third stream, if that makes sense, or the third rail.
So we're still waiting for that third guy. Maybe
I don't see anybody who's as important as those two are when it comes to actual long-term legacy and, I'm just trying to think of the right word, and sort of, like a profound meaning to the younger watchmakers.
Hmm. I always heard, watchmakers and also in the press, they are all saying that Recep Recepi is actually the one to become the next watchmaking superstar. So not yet, because he's so young.
Yeah, so it's like, and it's sad sometimes people flame out, I'm sure you've seen that with people who, people got excited about one or two watches.
Yeah.
Right. So one can hope, and I'm with you 100%, but I don't know. I mean, do you think he's got the nuds to go the distance?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I cannot predict the future, but
yeah.
I mean, he does have the backing of, the majority of people as well. He doesn't have to worry about retail success. His watches are already waitlisted. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I think what's good is he's already kind of got all the steps that an independent watchmaker wants, right? Which is he doesn't have to worry about, the financial side of the business, which is, very important because a lot of, like you start up a regular, at the end of the day, they're entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurship, a lot of entrepreneurs fail because, it is what it is because of market forces or what have you, So the financials are taken care of. He has the backing of the majority of the industry already. So, and listen, he's very technically proficient, right? So there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to, but yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, we'll see,
Yeah. He has also Hagman by his side.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, everything you say is true. And listen, you know that I'm an unashamed fan of his, and am working on hopefully accessing some of the work. But it's hard over the long run to know. It really is.
Yeah, of course.
You can only wish people the best. But if he suddenly makes one or two like watches that people are sort of like, huh, what? Then that can go sort of sideways for a while at the very least. And it's happened with other independents who I think are amazing. Like for instance,
like who?
Daniel Roth went sideways for.
The problem is he doesn't make, because Bulgari kind of fiked him, to be fair. So they own the rights to the name Daniel Roth, so he can't even make watches under his own name anymore, right?
Yeah, but there were other issues there that I'm not going to get into at this time that were more personal and private.
Right.
But the bottom line is whatever that external pressure that you're discussing, whether it's the personal thing or whether it was the business or both, it kind of like pushed like his entire legacy for a certain amount of time, a significant amount of time, kind of sideways. And he was like treading water. I feel just in the last few years, people are coming back around, and there are certain, I would say, tastemakers or whatever who are really getting on the Roth bandwagon now and like, look, this is a good watchmaker, and this person, is a true independent. He literally can make an entire watch by himself. There aren't many people who can do that. And he is also a wonderful designer of watches and really deserves to be supported. It's like a collected man has really gotten on the Roth bandwagon in the last 12 months, particularly. And they're reselling a number of his, pieces now at increasingly high, not super high, like, Philippe Dufour levels, but at higher than they were levels even 12 months ago when people were sort of, kind of wringing their hands about him. So, hopefully that's on the upswing for him, and he certainly deserves it. But that can happen to anybody at any time in their career. And it takes a very strong person, and I can just say this because I'm a lot older than both of you guys. I'm probably older than both of you added together. That you have to be able to sit in the midst of that confusion and know that it's a fine place to be, and be able to weather that and come out the other side, with your values, personal values particularly, still intact and your vision intact. Many people do not, are not able to do that. So, that's why I'm always a bit on the, on the fence about these things.
So let me ask, because we did kind of also talk about this, and just obviously to continue our point on Daniel Roth, he is a phenomenal watchmaker. I know he's done a few collaborations with Philippe Dufour. His kind of case is very, very distinct, right? Even his dial layout, everything is very distinctly Daniel Roth. But he's a phenomenal watchmaker in his own right, and I'm glad he's getting the respect he deserves, because I mean, he really revamped Breguet, right? When was it, in the 70s or 80s? He's the reason why Breguet has any real retail success nowadays. Otherwise, they probably would have went defunct if it wasn't for him, frankly speaking, right? He basically redesigned the entire Breguet lineup. But I wanted to get into the conversation of what is an independent watchmaker, right? Because you did mention about like how do we define it. So I guess my question, because I've never really, like, to me, independent watchmaker, I'm kind of told who is an independent, right? So like I'm told Greubel is an independent or FP is an independent. I'm told, technically Paddock and AP are both independents, right? Because
nobody talks about, when you talk independent, nobody thinks that though. So
right. They don't consider them as independents, but they're technically speaking, right? No, well, I wouldn't consider them, but
that's
you know what
I mean. Yeah, I mean.
Right. But I mean, we're talking like Greubel, Ferdinand Berthoud, Kari, Philip Dufour, and the tons of other watchmakers out there, right? But I guess it would be a good thing. How do we define an independent watch? My question to you is, how would you define it? Because I don't even know where to begin.
I think an independent watchmaker who has their name on the brand, whether, and this is why I wouldn't count like Paddock or something. It's a person who has their own personal name on the brand, and they are capable of building a watch from scratch, from the ground up by themselves. If they can't do that, they're not independent to me. They are dependent on other people to put their aesthetic and design into production. So any watchmaker who calls themselves or is considered by me an independent, the first law that's like inviolate is that they need to be able to actually design and build a watch at their own bench by themselves.
Whew. But that's a kind of an unfair metric because I mean,
I don't think
so because Todd, Philip Dufour doesn't make his own dials, right? Metal.
He's capable, and he has done that. I know that. Voutilainen doesn't make his own cases. George didn't make the Abauches that were put in the Millennium. They were made by Omega. They were the first 50 off the line, and it was particularly given to him for that reason. So people use other things, but at the fundamental point, they're sitting at their own desk. They are finishing every one of these things for the perfect fit. If these things that come to them then require tweaking, they are capable of doing that, and they assemble the entire watch. When I say build, that's what I'm talking. They don't have to make every single piece by themselves, but they have to be able to build and assemble, and design their own watch. And if a case like in the case of Voutilainen comes from one place, or a dial, comes from another place, I'm okay with that. That's part and parcel of it, of the dynamic now. And I mean, the only person I'm really aware of who really made a watch completely thoroughly by themselves is George. Everybody else has a cheat at one point or another. I'm trying to think of somebody else who literally.
They have. So Roger has made handmade watches. I'm pretty sure FP
has made. Roger did it based on George, completely.
But FP made handmade watches. He's made.
Yes.
Same with Kari. Kari made I know the tantalum or decimal repeater. Actually, that was featured on a YouTube channel. It's called TikToking.
Right.
That's another excellent one. He featured that watch. That was entirely handmade. If I'm not mistaken. It uses a base.
His tourbillon from 2012. That watch was made not only by hand, but you were talking earlier about the watch that I think was it MB&F made by hand, old school.
Yeah.
Right. Masahiro made his tourbillon, his 2012 Serpentine with no CNC, literally in Hokkaido, Japan, by himself. Made every component himself for that 2012 tourbillon with no CNC work at all. Literally by hand. So, it's the same thing that you were talking about, in the same way. But that to me is like true independence. Before you have a brand, before you brand your stuff out in the world, independence is being able to do it all by yourself. That's what independence is fundamentally.
Well, technically Greubel did do that, right? Greubel did make a handmade watch.
Right. Yeah. Oh, no. Most of these guys my point is most of these guys at one point in their career have either had to do it, as a school graduation thing, or have done it because they wanted to be independent. They had designed, ideas of their own that they wanted to do that they couldn't do where they were. So they made their own watch. But everybody leans on, case maker here, or a strap maker there, or a crystal maker here, or a mainspring, person there. That's okay. That's I don't find that to be, a problem. But at one point in their life, they should have been able to make a watch by themselves.
Let's think about this. I need time to reflect on this. We got a good question from the captain who said, "Who's on the Mount Rushmore of watchmaking?" Louis Breguet, Patek, Audemars. So I would say Patek and Audemars. I would kind of throw them out. They're not listen. They've achieved a lot of great things, right? But they're not. The only thing is Patek made the winding crown, right? If I'm not mistaken, he made the what's it called? The winding system with the crown before it used to be with a key.
Yes.
So that's the one innovation that they did have. Audemars Piguet, I don't know the brand well enough. Same with Patek, to be fair.
I mean, first person to me who's going to be on the Mount Rushmore of watchmaking is Thomas Mudge.
Yeah, because he invented the Swiss lever.
The Swiss lever watch that you out there basically, except for George. And George would be at the far end at the other end because he did the coaxial. That's the only other escapement, that really matters. And then in between the two of them, maybe there's some other watchmakers. But for me, there's four faces. You've got Mudge over here, Blank, I don't know who, and George Daniels over here. Yeah. That's my Mount Rushmore. You can fill in the middle two with whoever you want.
I'm with you. I would include the second as probably John Arnold, and then the third maybe as Abraham Louis Breguet. But John Arnold is even questionable. You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah,
Breguet definitely has. I think those three have to be on there.
Yeah.
The fourth one is debatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think that those are very sensible three for sure. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, Thomas Mudge is not Swiss. He's British. So it's not the Swiss lever escapement. It's technically a British lever escapement.
Well.
The Swiss took ownership of that.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It is. But yeah, I think those three, Thomas Mudge, Abraham Louis Breguet, and George Daniels are definitely on there. And then the fourth, I mean, listen, there's so many people you can put on there, right?
Yeah.
It really comes down to what your opinion is. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on those three. Jordan says, I agree, not on this. I think it was previously with your definition of handmade, right?
Well, that's one of mine. It's not the only metric I would use, but that is when you said to me, how do I define independence? Independence means you're able to do it yourself without anybody else. So de facto, at least one of the metrics for me for an independent watchmaker is at one point, they should have been able to, quote, do it themselves independently.
Right.
But then as people scale up, then you have people in marketing and you've got people helping you build and you've got, people helping you do all sorts of things. And this is why Journe with 50 employees and Greubel Forsey with 130 employees. And I don't know how many Voutilainen Kari has. I always mangle his name. I always feel bad. And MB&F, I don't know. They have 50 or 60 employees. I mean, at that point, it's not independent by that token, but it started that way, before all the Chazarai.
Right. James the Advisor says, I guess Detroit Watch Company is an independent. He assembles the entire watch. Nice watches for them. I have no idea who this is, to be fair. Do you know who Detroit Watch
Company is? Assembling isn't enough. I specifically said build, which means if he's just assembling components that are made from everywhere else and he's just bringing them all together and throwing them basically on like a board, that's not independence. There are many watchmakers out there that do that. I mean, by that point, Aventi is an independent watchmaker, right? By that metric.
Right.
And that is not enough for me. If the guys at Aventi literally could make by hand one of their watches, literally the entire architecture and case just once by hand, I would consider them independent. Otherwise, they're just a watch brand who relies on a whole bunch of suppliers and then just has somebody else assemble their watch. That's not independent. There's a big difference.
Okay. So then on that definition, I'm going to come back and revisit this topic then. I want to think about this. John Galt says, if you're building a house, how many people can pour concrete, frame, do plumbing, electricity by themselves, etc.? It's okay to not do it all.
I agree. I think that's okay. But I think, the really good architects, the really great ones that we talk about, understand the mechanics and engineering of all those things. They understand plumbing, they understand the electricity, they understand the concrete, they understand framing, and they're able to build houses in certain ways that are, to some people, manage to be unthinkable because they're able to imagine things in their mind that most people would say that's impossible. A perfect case of that is like Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, when it was built in 1938, 39, 40. Those big cantilevered, those massive cantilevered decks, people said it was impossible. It was going to fall right over. And over time, it did sag because Wright knew it was possible. He just didn't have the technology, and he knew that later on people would tighten those things up, and then it could last forever. And that's what happened. But the really great architects can do it all if they had to. But it would be, how many houses could you design a year if you were going to do all that? It would be.
It's basically the same idea of an orchestra conductor.
Exactly.
Who has to know every part of the partition of every of his musician and harmonize everything.
And I can tell you that
that's a great analogy, actually.
That most orchestra conductors, at the very least, can put a score on the piano and can basically miniaturize the score in their head on the fly and play a reduced version of it at the piano. Many of them also happen to play many of the instruments. It's very maybe not like at soloist level, but they can, with a violin, they can bash their way through something. If they're given a French horn, they can, bash their way through something to show what they're trying to do. So, but at the end of the day, they, step into the role that they're stepping into fundamentally. So I think that's a really interesting analogy, Watch Jesus, 100%.
By the way, I just got informed by somebody. I have no idea if this is true. Keaton Myrick says, good show tonight. Apparently, he's an independent watchmaker himself. So hold on, I don't know if this is actually him, to be fair. It might not be. Let me pull up. Let me give him a quick plug. Here we go. Nice. I mean, it's interesting. It kind of reminds me. You guys know of Garrick?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of those kind of watches, and then like the lugs are very distinct with the.
Yeah.
This is. It's not 100% to my taste. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't love the lugs. The lugs kind of are off-putting to me. That's the one thing I dislike. And the hands. I don't love the hands. I got to be honest. Oh, it is him. I think it is him.
Cool.
Well, that's very interesting, man. It's interesting to get Keaton, if you want. Hey, let me drop the link. I'd love to have you on. Why not? Get a legit watchmaker who makes watches, or if you can, maybe even email me. I'd love to do a show with you discussing your watches. I'll put my email down below.
Huh. Really interesting.
That's pretty cool. I don't know if it's actually him, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, why not?
That would be cool to have him on.
Yeah. Somebody I didn't know. It's great. You learned something new.
What's the movement in this? Let's look these up. Keaton Myrick.
Yeah. Huh.
Okay, let's pull up one of 30. These are not cheap, to be fair. Handmade American watch.
American.
Okay, American.
All right.
An American watchmaker who unveiled his first watch. Keaton Myrick is refining the one of 30. A wristwatch, blah, 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 blah. Okay, he's based in Oregon, Keaton. Very nice, very nice. Studied watchmaking at, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, in Pennsylvania. Established by Rolex. Nice. Okay. Based on the ETA 6497. That's fair. Actually, I'm wearing my PAM tonight. The movement in this is a 6497. Let me pull it up. Hold on. Here we go. So it's ETA based. I like it. Obviously, it's nowhere near, I'm sure, the level of Keaton here. So let me not insult him. We got with inspiration from independent watchmakers like Dufour, as well as complicated vintage pocket watches, the historical inspiration, wind and click. Yeah, it kind of looks like we're discussing Speak Marine, right, with the officer kind of style watches. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that style in the case, and even the what's it called? Like it's almost like an onion style crown, but like a miniaturized version. Oh, it is him. I'm based in Oregon. Very cool.
I love that. Isn't it great that we're talking about
Keaton,
right in front of you? I love that.
Right.
Yeah. Terrific.
Listen, I'm sorry if I'm overly critical of your watch. I'm just being honest. You know what I mean? I got to give my honest feedback. But this is very interesting. Hold on. Let's keep reading. So more importantly, it's been smartly modified so as to improve the functionality and aesthetics. Most of the crucial components, including the balance wheel, wind and click, and balance bridge, are of its own design and make, so the unitest roots of the movement are not readily obvious. Yeah, I would have recognized it. I definitely didn't recognize it at all.
Wow.
This is really nice, to be fair. This is really, really nice.
Yeah, the back is very handsome, isn't it?
Yes, Keaton, if you can, jump on, or if you can, please send me an email. I'd love to do just like a show with you.
Yeah.
We could discuss your watch. That would be so interesting to have a legit watchmaker who makes an independent watchmaker.
Who I'm guessing is younger,
Maybe not technically independent by what's it called?
That's
by
great.
our definition today, but
Yeah. Wonderful.
how old is he? I'd love to know how old he is. Okay, so the parts that Keaton produced from scratch are both big, and he makes 3/4 plate, blah, blah, blah. Keaton buys
Makes his own hairspring.
Navarrock's one and then forms the hairspring manually. Damn, that's impressive, to be fair, because hairsprings are extremely finicky.
Yeah.
Very, very,
It's
very.
a lot of work. Very tedious.
Okay. Only a few parts of are retained, namely the escapement, wheel train, and barrel, which is only natural. Those components are hidden, and even so, they have been slightly modified to accommodate change. Nice. Okay, so the finishing of it. Unsurprisingly, the caliber 2930 is thoroughly finished, blah, blah, blah. 3/4 plate and bridges are 18 karat, hold on, are German silver, while the balance bridge and plaques are 18 karat rose gold, as are the regulating masses on the balance wheel. That's very interesting. All the decorations done by hand, blah, 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 3/4 plate. Now I'm curious, right? What's the inspiration of using a 3/4 plate? Like, why use a 3/4 plate as opposed to, I don't know, maybe something like the Swiss do, which is more of an open style. You know what I mean? Where you expose the open gear train. Is there any particular reason? I'd love to get your feedback on that if you can in the chat, or if you want to jump on.
3/4 plate, and looking at the thickness of it here, it's very rigid. Reminds me again of and also the finish, which is more frosted or gilded rather than Côte de Genève. It's a very English kind of finish to me, at least, based on all of that. The blued screws.
Even the blue, what's it called, jewel holders.
Chaton.
Yeah.
The chaton.
Yeah, that's rather stunning.
Look at the balance bridge, how it is finely beveled.
Yeah, look how
it is. It said it is in gold, right?
Yeah, rose gold.
Yeah, rose gold.
That is beautiful. That is very
really
good.
is.
Man, this is so interesting. See, we're learning something every day.
There you go.
Community advisor saying Keaton and RGM are both American watchmakers. Yes, I'm Canadian, but go America. Okay, hold on. Let's see if there's anything else. Blah, blah. Okay, case and dial. Let's look at this. Much of the move, the external component. The watch is 42 mil. Okay, we can work on that. Keaton.
I'm perfectly fine with 42 mil. Thank you.
Maybe 40 is better.
42 is fine.
39 is even better.
42 is fine.
But relatively thin at 10 millimeters. That's perfect for a dressier watch.
Yeah.
The case is a presence primarily due to the wide lugs. Yeah, I'm sure the lug to lug on this, to be fair, does look pretty large. It looks pretty substantial. Despite having kept silhouette of the case straightforward, numerous details, construction, and finish. So I want to know: Are these like hand blued? Or are these like thermally blued? It looks like it, right? It must be. Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, it looks like it. Once again, it's that purplish, bluish.
What's the difference between hand blued and thermal? I thought hand blued is thermal.
Yeah, hand blued, thermally blued, same.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying there's. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what's interesting? Moritz Grossman will hand brown, like their. I don't know. Their hands are brown, right? But it's a heat treatment that will turn them brown.
You're burning it over a different material that just affects the metal in a different way.
Look at the frosting of the dial, though. Isn't this is gorgeous?
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
I love that.
And it's a very interesting counterpoint to the back of the watch that is like seems to be super flat, gilded kind of.
Now I want to know: is this rose engine turn guilloche? I want to know.
Yeah, and it looks like the infinity pattern that J.N. Shapiro,
Yeah, that J.N.
or
Shapiro.
maybe has J.N. Shapiro do those for him. It's very
Now
cool.
this hand, right, is very reminiscent. You guys know who
No, no.
Garrett is, right?
Yeah,
Garrett?
it's Garrick. Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's Daniels.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, that.
Yes, it is. But the pattern is the infinity pattern that J.N. Shapiro is the one who developed that specific guilloche. So I'm wondering if, it's fine if somebody else has used somebody else's pattern. That's not an issue. But I'm wondering if he has a J.N. do those for him or not.
The watch guy says sharp design. Okay. Peruka says Keaton should do a Todd Levin one-on-one edition. Whoa, why does he come out here? Hold on. I want to get the exclusive here.
What sisters? Can somebody explain the sisters to me? What's that?
Yeah, let's get into that. Hopefully they describe it. Based on what I've seen in the back of the watch, we can live with the hands. These are awesome design execution. Yeah, but I'm sure you can customize the hands.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure.
You can definitely customize the hands.
And does it give a price point? Usually SJX.
We're getting to that.
Come on, let's go.
Slowly but surely.
I think Sisters is the place.
Ah.
Sure. Because it says Sisters Oregon.
Oh,
there is actually a place called Sisters in Oregon.
Thank you, WJ. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, based in Sisters. Where is it? We missed it. Hold on. Yeah, based in Sisters.
Okay.
Okay, let's build the suspense here. How much does it cost? We'll find out in just a quick minute after this commercial break. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, let's do it. Let's find out. Okay, here, a customization unique to this watch. Repeat on 1 of 30. Made by self-taught American guilloche J.N. Shapiro.
Ah, there you go.
The subdial is decorated with
Welcome.
infinity weave, a nested pattern of repeating once reduced, blah, blah, blah.
And
Very nice. Concluding thoughts, 1 of 30, blah, blah, nobody cares. Priced at $30,000 US. I mean, hey, to be fair,
yeah,
that's fair. Listen, fair is,
that's what I was assuming. It's for the same price as a J.N. Shapiro. It's the same price as an RGM. It's right in the same ballpark.
Exactly. It's in the same ballpark as a lot of independent watchmakers.
Yeah, I mean, you pay for independence.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest. Listen, other than the case, I think this is pretty gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of the case.
I would say even with that case, I think it's gorgeous, but it's too big for me. So I am really sad.
Interesting, man. Well, Keaton, I'm glad you here. Keaton says Passion Fine Jewelry has a watch of mine for sale. Let's see.
Okay.
Passion Fine Jewelry. Maybe it's a different watch. I don't know.
There you go.
Oh no, this is it. Okay, interesting. So you get a 9.
Wow.
That's
seconds at 9 o'clock. Interesting.
That's the same movement, yeah.
Yeah, same movement. Just an interesting dial. Very. Whoa.
Well, it's the same dial rotated, and the lugs are different.
And I like that the hands are completely blue.
But I don't think this has a, what's it called? The J.N. Shapiro subdial, to be fair, does it?
Oh, maybe not.
It doesn't appear to have, no.
Interesting. I mean, it is still very nice.
Oh, look at that. That's great looking, too.
This is a completely different one, though. Hold on a second. Maybe it comes with multiple dials? I'm confused.
Yeah, it's another dial, right?
Oh, no, it's the same dial.
It just was under the light, I guess.
No, look. This one has 2 plaques. The other one has only 1 plaque.
Hold on. Yeah, this is a totally different dial.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm confused. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
This is confusing.
Keaton is pulling some magic tricks.
Explain it to us. I don't get it. But yeah, 2 of 30. Interesting. But man, this is beautiful. Look at this. This is beautifully finished.
Yeah.
You get the kind of range of finishing, right? Scaling on the ratchet wheels.
Yep.
anglage. You get, what is this, kind of circular finish on the,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to describe this finishing.
Yeah, this is different than the other one we looked, which
Yeah,
looked,
the base plate is completely different, right?
Yeah.
I really love how it comes from the escapement, you know.
Uh-huh.
That is a nice touch.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, man. Well, listen, you learn something new every day. Never knew about this brand before tonight. Well, Keaton, listen, like I said, send me an email. I'd really appreciate an email. I'd love to have you on the show, discuss a little bit about your watches with you, man. I'm sure a lot of people on here would be really interested by your story. The watch guy says, "Do you want my credit card now?" Listen, I'm telling you, we got a lot of great punchers on the show and who watch the show. So, Keaton, all I'm going to say is it would be a great idea to come on the show. That's all I'm going to say. Ollie Reza with a $27 super chat. Thank you so much. Showing support to my father, son, and the holy Tao. There we go. My thoughts with Stefano, Duco, the people, and veterans of Afghanistan, and Tim's liver. Wait, is Tim live streaming right now? Is he doing that? Is he? I know he was planning on doing a night stream. I don't know if he's doing one right now.
Oh no! Don't rebel stream over him again because Archie will get all pissed off.
Right, he is doing. Oh shit! Okay. We got to get on Tim's show. Hold on. We'll wrap up the show and then go watch Tim afterwards. That'll be fun. Tim getting drunk at New York City. It's always a great watch. Thank you very much, Ali. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat. But yeah, so just to update people, Stefano's doing all right. I don't know how, but he literally FaceTime called me yesterday, and the guy's an absolute animal. I don't know what he was thinking FaceTime calling me, but hey, man, we're all definitely, our prayers are with him. Duco Ted as well. I know a storm. He has a very, very big storm passing by. I think it's a hurricane even. So definitely praying for him. And of course, Afghanistan. Listen, what can you do? It's a tragedy. There's not much else to say. But yeah, so Keaton, I'd love to have you on one day. That would be amazing. And pretty cool, man. No?
Yeah.
Beautiful
Watching
the show.
I'm a big fan.
That's very cool. You know, sometimes you have those damn moments, you know, where you just like sit back and think, man, this is awesome, right? I'm having one of those moments.
Yeah.
Right now. Forgive me. I'm
great, guys. Thanks so much. This was a good one.
Alrighty, so I guess let's circle back to this conversation, right? So independence, right? How do we define one? See, like for me, when it comes with someone like Keaton, right? He uses an ETA-based movement, but he has entire control of how he designs, makes, manufactures a watch. So to me, technically, he's an independent, right? Like he's a very micro independent, like a very small niche. Like you can even technically classify him as would you say it's a micro brand? But that's a bit offensive to call it a micro brand, right? I don't know. Because for me, the way I would define an independent, right? And I understand your definition. I do like it, right? I really like it.
Well, it's not a definition. It's just one metric. I mean, there's a lot of metrics that I would apply potentially to thinking of somebody as an independent, but that's where it starts is all I was saying from
right.
That wasn't
even my definition is too loose, right? To have control over the way you design, make, conceive, create your watches is, I mean, listen, Cartier has that, Chopard has that. You know, there might be the Richemont overlords, but they still have. I think it's LVMH with Cartier. It's not Richemont. But the point is, right, is that they still, you know, to a certain extent, you know, design and have control over how their watches are made. So.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's something I got to think about. How do you define an independent watchmaker? That is not easy. I just want to say, Ali, thank you again for the super chat. Greatly appreciated. Lord of Flex says, if you get on live now, you'll sell some watch. I can't guarantee that here. You can't guarantee that. Mossy says, Rich stood up Tim. I'll definitely have to tune in and see. Keaton says, thank you for the kind words, gentlemen. I'm busy now. I'll be back for another live stream. Great show. Listen, if you want, email me. Send me your schedule. We can work around your schedule. I would be happy to have you on, have the discussion. I can message Todd because I love Todd to be on the show as well. Todd could probably provide some great insight and obviously open the stream up to the public as well, like we usually do.
I think a one-on-one between the two of you would be the ideal thing, really, because you can focus down rather than banging it around.
Well, I'd like to gather questions. It's all about fielding questions from
but people can do that in the stream side, but I think the interview between the two of you would be really great.
All right, maybe I'll do one-on-one. I don't know, but listen, if you want, we can set up like a time and date that's ideal for you. Send me an email. I'll be happy to answer. Again, I'll just put it in the chat. We got Sean W. with the $7. Thank you so much. Says, Dr. Levin, I read a fantastic interview you gave regarding your home, such a cool shape, and time in New York City. I admire your commitment to art and architecture.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, so those are. Did you start in art or you start in architecture? In art, right?
Well, I'm not an art or anything. It's just because I own this house that you see.
Right.
That's just.
It's true. It's art and music, right? Art and music.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you start in art or did you start in music? And what drew you to either?
Well, art was because I grew up my mother collected when I was young, so I grew up in a house with art, and so I was exposed to it early on. I was exposed because my mother and father were divorced when I was a baby, and I lived with my mother. She took me to galleries and she took me to museums, and perhaps most of all, most importantly, she took me to artists' studio visits, and I got to go to artist studios when I was very young and experience that. And so that just became a part of my language, I guess, as I grew up. And music, I started because my uncle was a percussionist. He played drum set like in a jazz band, and I always thought that was cool, and I wanted to be like my uncle. So I started playing percussion when I was pretty young, and that naturally led into other things. And I began writing, and then I wound up getting my degrees in art history and in music composition. So it was sort of just like a natural progression.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing, man. Thank you very much for sharing. Appreciate that. We got thank you, Sean W. again for the $7 super chat. Greatly appreciate it. We got Wings and Watches with the $10 saying, awesome stream Saturday night. Well spent. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a very, very cool stream. It's not every day you get the honor of having a watchmaker, stop by the show and join, It'd be interesting. I'd love to know what goes into the process of making a watch, designing a watch, because first of all, you have to figure out your case, right? What's your case going to look like? How do you come up with this case? What's your inspiration behind it? Then it's the dial, right? Or actually, it'll probably be the movement the movement probably comes first, right? Because you build your case around your movement, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, not necessarily. George Daniels was very clear. He said he always started with dial design, and then once he had the dial design exactly the way he wanted, it was just an issue of like making it work on the above the guts on the inside. But he always started with a dial design. Because for him, that's what the watch was going to say to other people, and that's what was really going to represent him to other people. Very few people, turn over the watch, and if they do, even fewer really understand what the hell's going on. But the dial really says, like, I'm a person like you were talking about. The round ones that are like more normal in design aren't as exciting for you, Marco, as you want to see an independent, something that's like a really interesting, for like sort of asymmetrical, something going on dial. Yeah. And I would imagine that those sorts of designs don't start with the guts on the Greubel Forsey, with the world that's revolving in the lower left-hand quadrant didn't start with like a movement. It started with, it'd be really cool to have like this miniaturized thing of the world revolving. And now how are we going to do that? So I think it actually starts with the dial far more often than you'd think, because truthfully, the only person who developed any kind of change in the escapement was Daniels. Everybody else is just riffing on existing dynamics and kind of putting their own tweak on it, which doesn't, it's really about the dial. So I think I'd fight with you on that one. Respect.
No. Listen, it's interesting, right? Because the reason I say movement, right, is because, so I understand the whole point of a dial, right? But for example, unless you're creating your own movement, right? Unless you're making an in-house kind of movement, right? Like an ETA 6497 has, either 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 9 o'clock subseconds, right? Typically, that's the way that you see it. Like mine has a 9 o'clock on Keaton has a 6 o'clock subsecond. So, like that's why I say you might design your dial around your movement, That's the idea. So if you're making an in-house movement, then sure, maybe then your point definitely holds up. But I guess if you're using maybe not necessarily off the shelf, but you know what I mean, like an ETA based or Valjoux or any of those kind of movements, I guess in that regard, maybe you can start with your movement and then go to your dial. I guess it depends.
But true independent, and this is my point, Marco, and this is what I would argue, wouldn't be constrained by that. Like if they wanted to have their dial at 7 o'clock, they would figure out the movement that basically ran that, like a Dufour duality. You know, I want my dial at 7. I don't want it at 9. I could have done it at 9 or 6 and made that whole thing a lot easier, but he didn't want that. He wanted it where he wanted it, which meant that he had to reconfigure everything on the inside and figure, you know, and that's still a very classic looking dial by your standards, which I agree with you, by the way, 100%. So I think, you know, for an independent, if you're talking about what defines one, which is an interesting discussion that you're putting out, I think one of those things is that another thing is that an independent wouldn't be constrained by anything except for their personal vision as far as developing their own personal language of horology. And everything else follows from that. If they're going to say, I'm only going to use ETA, you know, or Valjoux or whatever movements, or, you know, old Lemanian movements or whatever kind of movement, it doesn't matter. They're already kind of starting from a fixed pole start, fundamentally. Which they can only build X so much around. But a true independent is like their vision is as wide and as deep as possible in order to develop their own personal language of watchmaking. And that's what I think when you're talking about, so like, well, then who is the Trinity? It's the kind of people who develop their own personal language of watchmaking and are not constrained by history, technical component, technical issues, or any other issues, you know, in terms of that. They have to say precisely what they have to say, no more and no less. And it's the same for great architects. We were talking about, right, you know, I know the cantilevers are going to sag, but that's the way I see the building. And it's true for great artists. And it's true for anybody who has a vision, even in business, you know, Steve Jobs or you know, Bill Gates or, you know, a Bezos or whatever. Their artists is in the same way as that. Their vision was so unique and they were willing to do everything and anything it took to see that vision through. That's what the independents are to me.
So here's my thing, right? Like the watch guy just said, definition of small quantities of the small team, everything is machined and made by hand in small batch. So problem with that is how many watchmakers are making hairsprings? You know what I mean? The jewels, even for that matter, you know, like it's almost impossible to make a watch entirely by hand. Like it's so difficult. Like it's almost like an obsessive definition. But listen, I want to take the time to reflect on this, right? Let's think this over. Let's take a couple of days and we'll come back to this topic. How do you define an independent watch brand? We're going to do a whole stream on that. Todd, I'd love to have you on. I'd love to get the feedback from the viewers, but we've been going on now.
That's fine, but I just want to say that save this question. I won't give you my answer now, but I think this is a good question from the watch guy. And so like screenshot that and keep that for the next one. This is a very good question to discuss the small quantity issue, the small team issue. That's a separate thing. You know, everything being machined, made by hand is like another thing, you know, like those are all interesting things.
Those are all
a lot going on.
How we define an independent watch.
In that question. So
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You know, it
brings up a good point. It's not so fucking difficult. It's so fucking unnecessary. Well, not technically, right? Because it's not unnecessary. It's technically necessary to make the watch. It's unnecessary to, you know, go out of your way to do it, right? That's the point. But that's why.
You know, for me, it's like that whole new level of commitment. You know, because. For example, if I heard an interview of Dufour and he was talking about how he had to put absolutely everything into it and it had to work, otherwise he would lose everything. And, you know, it takes years and years to make your own movement and everything. And I wonder how many watchmakers are hindered because of this, because they can't get that extra level of commitment. They could do it, but like really going all in, that might be too risky. And I wonder how many are like discouraged by that.
A lot, probably. Yeah. You know, that's kind of what, to a certain extent, helps separate the wheat from the chaff. Because one of the many things that anybody who's independent of what they do, again, whether they're an artist or an architect or a watchmaker or whatever they are, they build cars, it doesn't matter, or they're in business to design computers that are going to change the world. You have to be able to take on tremendous amount of risk, and be able to shoulder that for prolonged periods of time. And that takes a certain kind of personality. Just that alone, regardless of whether it's watches or
exactly. This is why I talk so highly of Max Bussard, because he was exactly like this, and every interview he will tell it again. I make watches, but I am very fortunate that actually people buy them, and by them buying my watches, it allows me to continue. And this makes him, it makes his business doable.
Yeah, that's why that support, particularly for the youngers, it's so crucial early on. Like, if you find a young independent that you like, whoever that is, I'm not even going to name names. It's like so important that you're willing to, in your watch collecting journey, whoever you are, if you can afford to, support them at an early point in their career. Because that's really when that financial support is crucial to a make it or break it dynamic. Later on, when they're famous and they have wait lists and it matters, but it doesn't matter as much as when they're, younger. And that's why I think everybody should key in on just one young watchmaker that they're interested in. It doesn't matter what other people think. Fuck what other people think. It's what you think, what matters to you, what's important to you. And if you can, establish a contact with that person and see if there isn't a way that you can participate, if you, kind of thing, and see what you can do. And hopefully you'll be able to, maybe buy a watch by whomever it is. But I think that that's very, very crucial.
Yeah.
I love it, guys. On that note, I think I'm going to wrap this show up. Watch Guy brings up a good point. I want to add to my definition the word design. So we'll come back to this topic. I want to do an entire topic on how we define an independent watchmaker, because I think it's important, right? It's important to this conversation. So on that note, guys, I want to wrap this show up. I want to thank the Wristwatch Jesus and Todd for joining me tonight. It's always a pleasure. I want to thank all the people in the chat. Thank you very much. Please be sure to like the video before we end, guys, and most importantly, because Todd put his on, you got to wear your watches. I saw you put that.
No, I don't have any.
Wristwatch, what is this? A watch? Oh, look at this. He was doing so well. You know what I mean?
Bye, guys.
We got one last super chat. Kurt coming in with the $5 saying, great show as usual, Marco. And cheers to Jesus, who's up at 4 a.m. or sub shite. And Todd Levin is fascinating as always. Always a pleasure. Thank you guys again.
All right.
Care, everybody. Good night.
Good one, guys.